everybody, my name is Danny Acosta and welcome to this presentation, Ammunition of Hope app, the way to decrease suicide among adolescents, or at least one of the ways. And we're going to be talking a few things about statistics. We're going to mention those, and I will leave them in a Word document down below, also as an attachment as a Word docs, and there will be all the notes, the references you will need, and everything you need to look at, statistics and everything like that. Adolescents can be defined as those that are between the ages of 10 and 18 years old who are experiencing hormonal changes, are going through puberty, people that are starting to have different thoughts, they're having their bodies change, and they're going through a lot of different experiences in life. And so many times, a lot of these adolescents are going through a really tough time. They're going through a tough time in school, they're going through life experiences at home, they're also going through personal experiences, both male and female. And one of the things that really stand out to me is that suicide among adolescents is one of the leading causes of death in adolescents. One of the leading causes, or one of the leading deaths that cause deaths among suicide would be firearms. One of the things that I learned through my research is a lot of people have to go through experiences. And there has been a great decrease, but recently there's been a lot of increase in suicide. Yes, there has been generational changes, cultural changes, more acceptance among medications and the medical field, and even the evolution of medicine has truly evolved and we have a better understanding, but we also have increasing numbers. Why is that? And why is it that when we see the numbers among adolescents, it doubles? And so one of the things I want to talk about here is the amount of time that we spend on technology. Adolescents spend a lot of their time on technology, but that decreases the time they spend socially. Yes, there are gaming communities, online communities, but many times these can actually end up toxic. They actually end up not being proactive. Right? They end up being the opposite. And when we spend a lot of time on technology instead of socializing, we don't spend time outdoors, we don't spend time with people or with friends, and a lot of times this can hinder us from our growth. That's not to mention the peer pressure at school. That's not to mention all of the things that youth are picking up through social media, through media like music, movies, and where it gets very dramatized and it becomes this thing like an escape. And many people begin to think like, oh, maybe that's the way out. And the reality is that it's not. And there's a lot of shame, depending on adolescent culture, right? If they come from a specific culture where being shameful or being embarrassed or guilty, walking around with that weight, sometimes the honorable way out is suicide. We think of this, and maybe in modern time, it seems like, no, there's no way that's still going on. But it is, and it's a sad truth, but it is true. There's a lot more awareness online for youth to find resources to be able to prevent these measures. For example, there are websites, there are other kind of social mediums that people can use. For example, apps where they can track themselves and they can have closer connection through telehealth with their clinicians. But the reality is that there's also easier access on ways on how to find out lethal means. For example, people can actually Google lethal doses of medication. They can Google what firearms are typically purchased for these kind of activities. And it's a devastating, crushing fact. A lot of people that go through suicide ideation, especially among adolescents, when they're transitioning over into let's say adolescenthood, right? It's between 1 to 2 years, sometimes even less than that, where it goes from suicide ideation to attempt of suicide. And it's heartbreaking when we lose family members to firearms, especially when it's among suicide deaths. From 1999 to 2014, females hugely increased their suicide rates, way more than males did. And this is heartbreaking because it was actually from ages 10 to 14. Between 1999 and 2008, suicide rates increased by 35%, guys. From 2007 to 2015, suicide rates increased hugely for youth who are among 15 years old for both genders. In 2018, male suicide rates was much higher, 3.5 times more than that of females, and the majority of these were through firearms. This is really devastating, guys. Like, I know I keep using that word devastating, but it's true. It's really true. We shouldn't be losing young people or any life. One is more than enough. And in 2015, female suicide rates was the highest in the past 40 years, guys. 40 years. No other year had there been higher suicide rates until 2015. And this was with females. So now I want to talk about Klonskys suicide theory, which is actually 3 steps. And this 3-step theory goes from suicide ideation, strong to moderate ideation, and then progressing over to suicide attempts. Klonskys theory really relies a lot on Joyner's theory, but it actually elaborates because Joyner's theory talks a lot about pain, burdensomeness, hopelessness, things like this, right? But suicide ideation really begins to focus on, well, through Klonskys theory, it begins to focus on different types of pain, right? Like not just the pain we feel physically, but there's a lot of emotional pain. There's a lot of mental pain. And it kind of levels it out. It says, okay, how can we put a level on this from 0 to 10 type of thing? That's why there's moderate ideation. That's why there's strong ideation. And depending on the level, we can kind of gauge when is the attempt about to happen. And many times it's so brief timing. It can literally happen in minutes, right? And that's the thing that we have to focus on. That's why we need to start decreasing access to lethal means. One of the things that I really want to emphasize is the 4 parts, which is pain, loneliness, connectedness, and access to lethal means. And this one, guys, I really want to focus on access to lethal means, because a lot of people, when they feel hopeless, right, when they don't feel any connection, yeah, when they feel lonely, okay, a lot of these things begin to add up. They mountain up, they pile up so intensely. And once somebody has that access, a lot of people think, oh, you know, my children don't know where my guns are or where my bullets are. You think that. And sometimes we don't really know. And it's not just firearms. It could be medications. It could be other things that we don't think about. Now I want to talk about intervention. There are different ways of bringing intervention upon adolescents to be able to decrease suicide rates. And one of these is healthy lifestyles. Healthy lifestyles is very important because it allows people to eat healthy, you exercise, you get your mind moving, you get your mind going, right? And it keeps you busy, it keeps you focused, it keeps you dedicated and committed to doing something proactive. It keeps you out of the house, or even if you are exercising inside of the house right now because, you know, pandemic, even though right now, you can still keep your mind occupied, right? On positive things. Another thing that we can do is to educate and bring awareness to parents to be able to identify when youth are feeling suicidal ideation, when they have suicidal ideation. And this is something very important because it begins to acknowledge, okay, what is my child thinking? What is my child going through? It's not to get in their head, right? Because we don't want to do that. But it is to acknowledge and say, okay, I've noticed some behavioral changes. I've noticed some moods changing a lot. Where is this going? Where is this coming from? Being able to bring connectedness among family members, among friends, staying connected. This is very important. You can also have a hope box, right? A hope box can be something where you put family member memorabilia, like pictures, maybe you put little charms, things that remind you, like, hey, I'm not alone in this thing. I have hope. I can still get out of this. I don't have to take my own life away. I can make it through this. And that's a very good thing to have. I also want to emphasize commitment to health services, meaning youth can remain connected to their PCP, their counselor, their therapist, their psychiatrist, a clinician, maybe their social worker, people who are in their team, right? They're going to give them the tools to be able to overcome a lot of this suicide ideation, to prevent a lot of this activity from occurring. This also includes reducing, right, the amount of medications in the household. One of the most powerful tools as well is finding hope, meaning connecting with a community that may be going through something that that individual may be going through, and sharing their story and saying like, hey, you know what? I also had suicide ideation. I also had suicidal thoughts. I also attempted. You know what helped me? A, B, and C. And when you do that and you're able to acknowledge like, man, I helped so many youth prevent the attempt, right? This is powerful. This is very powerful. Now I want to get to the meat of all of this, what everybody's been waiting for, Ammunition of Hope app. The Ammunition of Hope app would be very powerful. It would allow people to have accountability. For example, if they're going to go buy a weapon at a store, a firearm, right? You're going to have to require medical clearance on the app, meaning your PCP or any of your clinicians would have to approve that you are okay or have approval to buy a firearm. So this is one. So when you get to the store owner will require you to show your app, show proof on your app that you have medical clearance. There will be an updated date stating that it was within the last 7 days so that everybody is on the same page. This app will also keep record of what weapon you bought, how much ammunition you bought, and it will also require to purchase a safe box for the ammunition and for that specific firearm. This safe box will actually have a password access. It will require a password on the box, and it will require a password through the app, and it will be completely accessible. So if people don't have access to, let's say, pressing buttons or something like that, which you can access that through the app, right? You can make sure that you have access at all times. We want to make sure that everybody has access to their firearm in a safe and profound way. The app will also notify people that you want to hold you accountable. So for example, let's say there's an individual with suicide ideation, okay? The clinician should already know this. But also, the clinician will have access to the app through their own personal phone. Meaning, let's say a person with suicide ideation is already being held accountable by their clinician. And for whatever reason, they decide to go and open that box. Now, there will be an emergency opening to that box where you don't have to go through all the passwords and all of this and that. But immediately, the box will notify the app, and the app will notify all those people being held accountable. Meaning the clinicians, maybe friends or family members, people that are trusted by this individual. The police will also be notified, and they will arrive to the location because the box, the weapon, and the app will all have GPS. So this will keep everybody safe. Now, let's say it's not an emergency, but they decide to open the box, okay? I know a lot of people that they try to just count the bullets. It's just a habit. They might just want to count their bullets, right? Now, the bullets should be held, they should be tracked through the app, but sometimes they want to just count them physically. Well, the app will notify the clinician, is it okay for this person to open this box right now? And if they're at high suicide ideation or strong suicide ideation, the clinician can choose to deny. The box will not open, it will remain sealed. And this will be very beneficial to decrease access to this firearm. Obviously, we can also put the safe box outside of the home, which is the safest way to go, right? Leave it at a family member's house, leave it at a friend's house, or leave it at a shooting range, right? Where people will make sure that they don't have access to it, right? And this will be very helpful for all families and all individuals. Finally, I want to close with this. Let's reduce access to lethal means, guys. Whatever that may look like, whether it's firearms, medications, any other thing that you feel that can cause someone to commit suicide or attempt suicide. We have to encourage each other, guys. I know that a lot of people will feel that's invasive to my privacy, right? To my firearm, to my life. Maybe it's a hobby. That's okay, guys. But you have to remember, better it be invasive to your privacy than to lose a life. I know your privacy is important. I know that. But lives are important also. And we can decrease the loss of adolescents being lost to suicide. A little bit, guys. I just ask you, please. A little bit of your privacy can go a long way to save millions of lives around the world. Adolescents have so much access to lethal means right now. But it starts with us. And not only will it decrease suicide deaths among adolescents, but among any age that decide to go in the direction of firearms. And also, it will keep track of those that are buying firearms so that we can decrease mass shootings as we have seen recently. We can decrease burglary that happens through firearms. And we can decrease so many more unfortunate and disastrous just situations that happen. So guys, this is Danny Acosta. I will leave all the information down below in the description. And thank you very much for watching. Let's prevent suicide, guys, among adolescents. Youth, we love you all. Take care, and have an amazing day. God bless you all.